Welcome to our next segment. We're going to be discussing artwork from the colonial Americas. So in particular, we're going to be looking at the Spanish colonization of the Americas. Many European nations came to the Americas to increase their wealth and broaden their influence over world affairs. The Spanish were among the first Europeans to explore the New World and the first to settle what is now the United States. So they created a colony called New Spain, in which they settled parts of Mexico, the southwestern part of the United States, and parts of South America. Other European nations also created colonies as well, but we're going to be looking at the Spanish colonization in this segment. Spain grew very rich from gold and silver it found after conquering the indigenous civilizations that lived in Mexico and South America. So the artwork that we're going to see is really an infusion of European taste with indigenous culture and stylistic conventions in their art making. So it really is interesting artwork to look at. This is the first work that we're going to be looking at. It's a book. It's a codex. Remember, that's the term. And this was created around 1541 by the first viceroy of New Spain, Antonio de Mendoza. Now, the viceroy of Spain was the administrator of the colony. So the king of Spain was in Spain, and so he would send a viceroy to sort of administer his rule in that colony. And so he was one of the first viceroys of Spain. He commissioned this codex to record information about the Aztec Empire. We will be learning about the Aztec Empire when we start learning about non-Western art. We have a few segments related to non-Western art history. Our attention so far has been on the Western tradition. The codex became known as the Codex Mendoza, and it contained information in particular about the development of the city Tenochtitlan, the Aztec city, and sort of some of the ceremonies and tributes that Aztecs paid to the city, and also a little bit about their calendar. This was created by local artists, so this actually was done by an Aztec scribe. The images are often annotated in Spanish by a priest that spoke the local language. Viceroy Mendoza intended to send the codex to the Spanish king, Emperor Charles V of Spain, although it never made it to Spain. It was actually intercepted by French pirates, and so France ended up acquiring the codex and keeping it. The codex contains a lot of information about the Aztecs and their empire, and this is the front piece of the codex. And in this particular piece, it is really relaying information about the organization of the Aztec capital. It is spelled Tenochtitlan, Tenochtitlan. I think that's how you say it. I'm just going to refer to it as the Aztec capital from now on because I have trouble with these pronunciations, so forgive me. And this is also known for the place of the prickly pear cactus. And I don't know if you've noticed, but we do have a bird sitting on a cactus. So the Aztec city was established in the middle of a lake called Texcoco, Texcoco, in the Valley of Mexico in 1325. Let's see. And so when we look at this page, it really gives us a sort of systematic diagram of how the city was divided up. It was divided up into 4 parts by these sort of intersecting blue-green lines that create these diagonals. The city was also made of canals, and it was very much similar to the Italian city of Venice, and was divided into 4 quadrants. The image displays the 4-part division of the city and the canals running through it. The division of the city into 4 parts was intended to mirror the organization of the universe, and also believed to be the 4 parts aligned with the 4 cardinal directions: north, east, south, and west. We're going to look at some details. At the center of this diagram of the Aztec city is an eagle on a cactus growing from the midst of the lake, and so this really does symbolize the creation of the Aztec city. The eagle and the cactus relate the narrative surrounding the capital's establishment. According to Aztec myth, their patron deity, which was a hummingbird, his name is spelled Huitzilopochtli, told the Aztecs' ancestors to leave their ancestral home of Aztlan and look for a place where they saw an eagle atop a cactus growing from a rock. He informed them that when they saw this sign, they should settle and build the city. For the Aztecs, they observed the sign in the middle of Lake Texcoco, and so established their capital on an island in the lake. So the cactus upon which the eagle rests symbolizes the place name of the city, Tenochtitlan. The cactus is a prickly pear cactus, and usually these types of cactuses grow from a stone, and so that's what this is representing. Today's Mexican flag also displays the eagle on a cactus growing from a stone in the middle of the lake, relating the mythical origins of the Mexican capital. There's some other important symbols that demonstrate or symbolize the development of the city. Besides the eagle on the cactus, there's a war shield below at the bottom, and this is indicating that the city was not settled peacefully in the Valley of Mexico. So this is what I'm talking about right here. This is an even closer up detail. We're going to be looking at this part of the composition. There's also a simple structure above the eagle, and this likely symbolizes a temple, possibly an early phase of the Templo Mayor, and or the Aztecs' main temple that was located at the heart of the city in the sacred precinct. To the right of the eagle is a simplified skull rack. Let me go. Around the structure, there are different types of plants, that are indigenous to the region. This includes maize or corn, and these sort of dot the city's four quadrants. And this is also, and no doubt, alluding to the agricultural fertility associated with the city. Looking back at the skull rack too, this is where the heads of people who were sacrificed would sort of be lined up. Let me talk a little bit about their sort of ritual. So there was described in this ritual a double temple that united two natural forces, the sun and rain, or fire and water. And during the spring and autumn equinox, the sun rose between these two temples. Two steep staircases led up to the west facade of the temple, and then this is where sacrificial victims climb the stairs to the temple. And this is the method that was used to sacrifice them, was that priests threw them over a stone, which quickly cut open their chests and pulled out their still throbbing hearts, a sacrifice that ensured the survival of the sun gods and the Aztecs. The bodies were then rolled down the stairs and dismembered, and so thousands of severed heads were said to have been kept on a skull rack in the plaza, which you see here represented. So just to give you a little information about their sacrificial rituals. Some other symbols that we see are these human figures. There are 10 men that are depicted within the four quadrants. They're wearing white garments, and they have a hairstyle that displays a knot at the top of their hair. These figures are the men who led the Aztecs to this island location. They have name glyphs, and let me see if I can zoom in. So here, this is what they're referring to, these name glyphs that identify who they are. Let's see. And, oops, look closer. So I'm going to focus on here. When we look at the figures of the men, we see that one is different than the rest, and he's seated to the left of the eagle. He has gray skin, as well as a different hairstyle and a red mark around his ear. These traits identify him as a priest because he's bloodletting. So he's actually letting, or has cut his ear to let blood as an offering to deities. An ash is covering his skin. He also has a name glyph right here that identifies him as Tenoch, T-E-N-O-C-H. Other motifs such as this speech scroll coming from his mouth and this woven mat that he is sitting on convey his high status as well. So Tenoch died in 1363, and after this the first Aztec speaker or ruler was elected in 1375 by the Council of Elders. And the ruler was referred to as Tlatoani, T-L-A-T-O-A-N-I. Surrounding the page are what are called year glyphs, and so you can see a detail of these. And these basically, it's basically a calendar going around the page. I'm not going to go into too much depth about it. It's a little complex, but they denote certain periods in a cycle. They indicate, certain times when sacrifices should be made, different ceremonies. And this is really where our sort of calendar comes from. So below the schematic diagram of the city are two scenes of military conquests. The artist emphasizes the military power of the Aztecs by showing two soldiers in hierarchic scale. They physically tower over the two men they've defeated. So here you can sort of see here these figures are larger and the men that they've defeated are smaller. And the Aztec warriors are also identified by their shields. And then they also have these obsidian, I don't know if you can see closely, these obsidian, let me see if I can zoom in, bladed knives that they used in their military strategies. And these bladed weapons were referred to as macana, M-A-C-A-N-A. The defeated men come from two different locations, both identified with place glyphs. The regions that they come from are Colhuacan, I think that's how you say it, C-O-L-H-U-A-C-A-N, and Tenayuca, T-E-N-A-Y-U-C-A, and these were both located around Lake Texcoco. In this case, burning temples paired with specific hills note that both of these regions were defeated by the Aztecs. All right, this is our next piece that we're going to be looking at, and this is actually one of my favorite pieces. This is the first time I've taught this material in terms of Spanish colonization in the Americas, so I wasn't really too familiar with this art, but I actually adore this painting. So when you look at it closely, it's an angel who is dressed rather finely, and he's holding a gun. So you have these really three interesting sort of unexpected elements, guns, angels, and fashion, sort of coexisting in this composition. This is attributed to the master of Kalmakara, and it is known as Archangel with Gun. And the title is Azil Timorde. It was done before 1728, and it is an oil on canvas. So the gun that the angel is carrying, I think, is called an arquebus, H-A-R-Q-U-E-B-U-S. and this was a type of gun. And these types of images of angels carrying guns were produced from the late 17th century through the 19th century and the Viceroyalty of Peru. Let's see. These images first appeared in Peru, and then they became very widespread throughout the Andes in places like La Paz, Bolivia, and as far as present-day Argentina. So these celestial, sort of aristocratic military angels were first created after some of the first missionary, started coming to the region. And so these images were thought to sort of help terminate the practice of pre-Hispanic religions and really enforce the Christian Catholicism. We'll look at some details. The arquebus is a firearm with a very long barrel created by the Spanish in the mid-15th century. It was the first gun to rest on the shoulder when being fired and was at the forefront of military technology at the time. During the early 18th century, the Bolivian painter known as the Master of Calmacara and was later identified as José López de los Rios, or his workshop created a well-known series of paintings depicting angels with arquebuses, which included this one, Archangel with Gun, Azil Temor de. And so the name Azil Temor de indicates angel, Azil, A-S-I-E-L, and then a particular quality, fears God. I think Temor de refers to this idea of fears God. This painting was found by itself, but was likely part of a larger series that included angels performing other activities such as drumming and holding lances. The Catholic Counter-Reformation held a militaristic ideology that portrayed the church as an army of angels and its soldiers. So this painting really is representing this philosophy. So the idea of the gun is in its existence is this idea that the angel is protecting faithful Christians. Here's another image of an angel painted by Bartolomeu Roman. This is the Archangel Raphael. And although the Council of Trent from 1545 to 1563 had condemned all angelic depictions and names except those of Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael in the mid-16th century, this ban was not observed in the Viceroyalty of Peru, nor in Baroque Spain. In fact, angels appearing in paintings in royal convents were very widespread. Some of the angels in these paintings of the royal convent Las Descales Reales in Carcenacion, and this was a convent located in Madrid. You don't have to know that name, but these were painted by Bartolomé Roman in the early 17th century, and were actually reproduced and sent to the Jesuit Church of San Pedro in Lima, Peru. The workshop of the famed Spanish artist Francisco de Zuberan, and unfortunately we did not get a chance to look at his work. He was a famous Spanish Baroque painter, also sent paintings of angels to the monastery of Concepcion in Lima. And so this is probably why these pictures of angels were so widespread. The Spanish Inquisition later prohibited the cult of angels in the mid-17th century, but depictions of angels still flourished in the New World. And this is one of the reasons why I like these paintings of angels, because there's a whole, and I don't know if you ever knew that, there's this whole sort of cosmology and sort of study of angels and the different hierarchies of angels and the different statuses, and it's really quite interesting, and I think some of these paintings really get into those specifics. In Catholic teachings, angels explain the spiritual functions of the cosmos and thus could easily stand in for sacred indigenous beings. So for some of these local civilizations, they could sort of view the angel in this way. The asexual body of the angel in Azil Timorde is consistent with biblical descriptions. And early American images often alluded to the angel's connection to certain indigenous sacred planets and natural phenomena, such as rain, hell, stars, and comets. So this is something that the indigenous cultures could relate to. The Amara and Quechua peoples in the Andes may have associated the arquebus-bearing angel with Lapa, and this was an Andean deity associated with thunder. Catholic angels were also equated with Inca traditions through the myth of the creator god Viracocha, Viracocha. And so, again, the point that is trying to be made here is that you see this sort of infusion of Christianity intermingling and sort of mixing with these sort of indigenous cultures and sort of fusing together. There's also a Latin description above the left corner of the angel, and it approximates the original names of angels, and these were related to the names of planetary and elemental angels in indigenous religions. So there is a sort of unification of these indigenous religions with Christianity. Firearms did not exist in the Americas before the Spanish conquests, and there's evidence suggesting that the indigenous people saw guns as a sort of supernatural manifestation. Paintings of angels with guns were perhaps representative of both the power of the Spaniards over the indigenous people and also offering protection to faithful Christians. What you're looking at to the left are prints from a 1607 series called The Exercise of Arms. This was done by a Dutch Mannerist engraver. And these may have been the inspiration for these types of paintings of guns, angels with guns. These prints were models for specific military positions and demonstrate how to fire a gun. So when we look at the image of our archangel holding a gun, you can see that this androgynous figure is really holding the gun like a professional, close to his chest. Although the gun is ready for firing, the angel does not hold the trigger, nor does he hold it at eye level, as we see in this depiction done by the engraver. Contrary to the aggressive face, also of this image here from the engraver, our angel's face is very serene and calm. And the figure, the Azel, our figure is very graceful and really is sort of pictured and sort of posed in almost like a dancer-like pose. The extended linear lines of the angel's body recall Mannerist style, which was still preferred in the Americas in the 17th century. So remember, Mannerism was a style that came after the Renaissance in the early 1500s. And so, this style was still admired during this period. Here's some details where you can get a better look at the wonderful dress of the angels. And so the costumes that these angels with guns were wearing correspond to the dress of Andean aristocrats and Inca royalty. And again, it's very different than the attire that we see depicted here in this Dutch print. So the dress of the Azil Timorde was an Andean invention that combined contemporary European fashion and the typical dress of indigenous noblemen. So it was a combination of these two cultures. While colonial gentlemen were aware of fashion trends in Europe through the dissemination of prints, they invented certain outfits that came from Spanish America, such as the overcoat with these large balloon-like sleeves depicted here. The excess of textile in Azil Timor day indicates the high social status of its wearer. The elongated plumed hat that you see over here is a symbol of Inca nobility, as feathers were reserved for nobles and religious ceremonies in pre-Hispanic society. The broad brim hat on which feathers are planted was in style in France and in Holland around 1630. So again, very, very, I just love this painting. I don't know, I just think it's such a cool combination of Christianity with this idea of these sort of indigenous traditions. During the first half of the 18th century, when this painting was created, the use of gold and silver was prohibited in the clothing of nobility. The military, however, was exempt from this rule, and so that's why we see a lot of this sort of gold and silver interwoven in this really lush fabric. It's also, the painting itself is actually gilded with gold as well. So when we look at this depiction, we see that these angels with guns really personify this really interesting military, aristocratic, sort of sacred being adorned in this very lavish attire. There was a priest in Peru named Francisco de Avila who studied native customs, and he described the second coming of Christ as an event during which an army of well-attired angels with feathered hats would descend from heaven. Avila's writing directly alludes to the angels with guns and to the late vice-regal beliefs that portrayed the first conquistadors as messengers from God. All right, so I'm going to conclude here. There is going to be a part 2, so stay tuned, okay?